Well, first, let me welcome all of you once again. We're thrilled that you all have come up to see us, and again, it's a beautiful day. I have this, I'm not from up here in Vermont. I'm from California, but I have come to appreciate that when there is a beautiful day, we should take advantage of it. So, because winter's going to be here next week. So. I have the honor of introducing our panel of our alumni who have come back to us, and we're thrilled about that. And I've described to them that essentially what we're going to do is have them talk a little bit about themselves and then open up to questions for all of you. And we'll probably continue this for maybe an hour and 15 minutes or so. So we'll have time, plenty of time for questions. And then I don't think we're gonna. Actually, I learned that the room is available till 6 o'clock. But we're not going to stay till 6 o'clock because it's a beautiful day. And there's also some food that has arrived in back, so there's more to eat, and there's certainly more coffee and tea. So with that said, I'm going to turn to our panel, and I'm going to ask our panelists the first question, which is the basic question, is can you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of, one, your experience here at UVM and in the Honors College in particular, and tell us about what you've been doing since you left UVM.
All right, I don't know, is this mic working? Is it working? Okay, good, great. All right, so hi, I'm Joe Romano. I'm originally from southern Vermont, so I entered in the fall of 2009 as a microbiology and molecular genetics major. You see that this probably, or some of you can probably see this says 2014 on it. I actually took 5 years to graduate. I'll get into that in just a second. But while I was here, I studied, like I said, molecular genetics, and I also did minors in computer science and jazz studies. And while I was here, I did undergraduate research in the medical school with, my advisor's name was Neil Sarkar. He's not here anymore, but basically what I did was I started in the field of biomedical informatics, which is closely related to molecular genetics. I can answer questions about that later if you want to know what it is. But basically, that transitioned into what I'm doing in graduate school now. I'm studying biomedical informatics at Columbia. While I was here at UVM, though, I did a couple of other things, including I studied abroad in Japan for a semester, and I participated in some of the jazz ensembles here. So I sort of tried to spread myself out a bit. And because I did that semester abroad, that's why I ended up doing an extra year, because it meant taking other classes, preparing for the language, and doing other things that basically just meant I needed to spend a little bit more time here, but it never hurt me in the long run. So yeah, I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
I'm glad Joe went first because I wouldn't have known how to work this mic. My name is Julia Frankel. I also started in 2009 with Joe, and I graduated in 2013 with a degree in English and French literature. From there, and my undergraduate experience at UVM was wonderful. I loved studying literature. I got an opportunity to work with a lot of great faculty, especially Dr. Lisa Schnell, who was my thesis advisor, and who's amazing. And any chance you get to work with her, please take her up on it. I, from there, moved to Providence, Rhode Island, where I started working for Lifespan at really just the right time. Lifespan is the overarching health organization in Rhode Island, and we just went through an EPIC implementation. So I'm on sort of a different side of health informatics, but Joe and I can talk. But we just implemented the electronic medical record for the entire healthcare system in March. And I've been working as a financial analyst, also building the software, but essentially bridging the gap between operations and the software team as we, sort of go through this implementation and figure out how to optimize revenue for Lifespan. So I'll be looking forward to answering questions as well. Thanks.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Ben Vaughn. I grew up in Western New York and decided it was really time to get out of there once I got out of high school, so I came up here to the UVM. I was undecided for a year and a half. I dabbled in everything that sounded interesting at the time and wound up in the business school. I got really comfortable there. I studied accounting. Majored in accounting, minored in environmental studies. I was in the Honors College for the duration of my time at UVM as an undergrad. I completed a thesis on corporate disclosure response to SEC litigation. So when companies are accused of fraud, how do they change what they're saying about their accounting policies? Which was pretty interesting, and I get to go to a conference. Yeah, you laugh, but it was interesting, I promise. I'm going to a conference in Rhode Island in 3 weeks to present that research, so that's pretty cool. In my time here, I rode crew for a year and a half, which was really fun, but then I stopped doing that and decided to play rugby instead. Got a game right after this, so if you need something to do, you can come with me to the game. It'll be fun. But yeah, any questions, feel free to ask them. Oh, right. So now I am recently accepting a job in Boston doing audit for McGladrey LLP. And I'm also working in business development and analytics for a nonprofit startup here in Burlington called Books for Equality, which is a textbook library to service the UVM community.
Okay, hey everybody, my name's Hayley Johnson. I graduated back in 2011, as this kind sir pointed out to me earlier. But yes, so I came to UVM and I knew I wanted to study English. Like that I absolutely knew. I loved my classes. I was really interested in journalism and writing. So started out as an English major, joined the Vermont Cynic, wonderful club organization, but, you know, I'm a little biased, I guess. Joined the Cynic, was a writer, editor, and then was editor-in-chief in my last year here at UVM. And along the way, I also decided that I needed to balance my English with something a little bit more like harder. So I started studying economics as well. So I got to do both the math and the literature, which was, you know, really, really a wonderful thing for me. I wrote my thesis on the recipe in Italian-American culture. So it's called It's Only Words on Paper, the Recipe in Italian-American Culture. And it was wonderful because I got to incorporate my love of food, and I also got to learn a lot about how food and the creation of food plays a large role in you know, individual cultures and different cultures. I am definitely a huge foodie. Let's say that. Professor John Gennari was actually my thesis advisor, so he's a great man. I don't know if he's here, but I had a wonderful time working with him. So you should definitely work with him. Take his Italian-American literature classes if he's teaching them this year. Take them. They're amazing. And so then I graduated from UVM, and I'm now working at Global Foundries, which used to be IBM. So I'm essentially doing business analytics for the supply chain there, and it's the semiconductor industry, essentially. So I work on planning microchips in the fab. All right, I think that's it. Looking forward to speaking with you all in a few minutes.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Justin Dow. I graduated here in 2014. I was born and raised in Vermont, so I decided to come to UVM. I was actually admitted to the Honors College through the sophomore admission program, so I was a sophomore. I got in as a sophomore. So I'm studying electrical engineering. During my time at UVM, I was part of the IEEE, UVM IEEE Club. It's the Institute for Electronics and Electrical Engineers. We pretty much bridge the gap between students and professional development. So we would connect recent graduates or current students with employers. So we could find like internship opportunities and that kind of thing. I'm actually currently I'll talk about my honors thesis. So I worked in the semiconductor, research lab with Professor Walter Varhu. I pretty much developed electrical characteristics for different semiconductor materials. I'm a master's student now at UVM as well. I plan to graduate in 2016, and this summer I actually worked at I had a really cool internship opportunity at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, where I developed sensors for satellites. And I'm still currently working on different techniques for semiconductor development. And I look forward to answering questions.
Darn, I get to go after the NASA guy. My name is Tram. I was a biochemistry major at UVM, and so I'm a big science-y person. I loved all of my classes, and I think one of the trends going down the panel is that, everyone here has met mentors and professors that have been amazing, and I think that's so unique to UVM, and I still keep in contact with a lot of my mentors here. So I was a biochemistry major. My honors thesis was on traumatic brain injury stuff at the College of Medicine. So you can ask me about that if you want to learn more about it. But and then I was in France for a semester, just learning French language and culture, and so that was fun, a good way to get out of kind of the sciencey stuff I was doing here. What else? Oh, I was also in the pre-medical enhancement program, and that was really, really a good experience. And I, again, with those mentors from there too, are really great people to work with. And then, am I missing anything? I guess I was in the SGA, the Senate, and now I'm in medical school, so I'm at Brown, starting my second year. So I think that's it. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Tom Campbell. I graduated in 2013. I was a philosophy major and English minor. While at UVM, I was music director for the UVM Top Cats, which is the all-male a cappella group. There's a concert tonight. If there are still tickets, you should go. It's really fun. So I did that. I was co-chair of the Academic Affairs Committee on Student Government Association. I was vice president of a senior men's honor society called the Boulder Society. There's a female-identified counterpart called the Tower Society. And my thesis was a philosophy thesis on the relation of gender identity with philosophical theories of self, which was a really fun thing for me to write and for 10 other people to read. So while I was working on my thesis, I decided I wanted to look for ways that I could actually put what I was learning into practice, which is a really hard thing to do if you're a philosophy major. So I actually started an internship with a local rape crisis center where I did direct service support for people who'd been sexually assaulted and education for them. And they offered me a full-time job before I graduated. So I was working full-time for my spring semester and doing my thesis, which is a really bad idea, and I would not recommend it. Tell your children not to do that. But so I was doing that, and I worked as a coordinator at that rape crisis center for 2.5 years, plus a year of an internship before that. So I was there for 3.5 years, and I did direct service support at the emergency room and at court, and I went into every single high school in the area doing education about healthy relationships. And I led support groups for young men in custody at juvenile detention centers who had committed violent crime. Currently, I just moved to Philly, which I'm originally from New Hampshire, and then lived in Burlington, so big move. Moved to Philly with my fiance, who was also a UVM Honors College graduate in my year, and I'm at Penn Law. I'm in a program at Penn for people who have a commitment to public interest or government work.
Thank you. What we'll do right now is open up to questions from all of you. And what I'm going to ask is that you allow me to bring the mic to you, because that will allow us to everyone to hear the question, and also to record it so that we can have a record of it. So, questions? We have one. Your students would be like, just so you know.
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate all of you for the manner in which you're advancing your life journey. I noted that each of you together indicated a sense of service, that you're all serving, and that you're following your heart because you love what you're doing. I wondered if this profound sense of service and love for what you do is something you brought with you from your home, or is it something that was awakened and like a fire fanned to grow into a flame within you for passion, for life at the University of Vermont?
There's no particular order, so
You know, I think all of us would probably agree that one of the best things that UVM does is it really fosters giving back to a community that you come to, you know, dissect and really understand. The Honors College, I think, does a really good job of, you know, making you ask the questions like, why are we learning? You know, I mean, we're laughing because that's the whole premise of that freshman year class that you take, the pursuit of knowledge, or at least it was when we were freshmen. Is that still the case? Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that class really fosters a passion for, you know, yes, we're learning, but why is it that we learn? Is it for self-improvement? And, you know, in a lot of cases, is it to improve yourself so that you can then give back to the community around you? I think UVM is, you know, top-notch when it comes to that.
Yeah, so to add on to that, I think that in my experience, everyone who I know who came to UVM, in Honors College and otherwise, came in with a sense of they wanted to do something, but I think the great thing about UVM in particular is they helped them identify that they wanted to do that. So if they had a particular passion for some area of studies, they might have entered with some major that had nothing to do with that, but as you alluded to, Dr. Schnell, in the talk that you gave up on the balcony in the other building, you know, UVM has a really good way of helping students identify exactly what they want to do. And I think people find in pretty short order that, okay, there's something going on here that I could really make my life out of. And I know some people do, you know, get further on in their education and they still don't really know what they want to do with their life. But for the most part, I think the faculty here, especially in the Honors College, helps to work one-on-one with students to bring out what they hope to do for the rest of their life. So that's a good way of fostering that type of attitude, I'd say. But I know that I came into UVM wanting to do something. UVM just sort of helped to allow me to do that. So.
I just wanted to add, so as a tip and an advice for the students, what Julie and Joe says is basically, in my personal experience at UVM, if you want to do something, just ask, and someone will probably, not in a demanding way, but they're gonna help you, you know, people here are really nice and they really help you do whatever it is that you want to do. And so my advice for the students is to ask for what it is that you want. And, you know, those people there will help you with that.
Yeah, so in contrast to what Joe said, I actually I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I first came to UVM. I didn't really have a passion for engineering, or I didn't really want to be an engineer, but my parents were just engineers and I just thought that I liked math and science. But here at UVM, I had an opportunity to really explore what engineering means, what opportunities engineering can give you. And I think it's really important to talk to your professors and kind of just see what they have to say, and then see what you want to do from there. And that was about it.
There's the hands.
Congratulations to you again. I am very impressed by the caliber of the alumni of the Honors College at UVM. And thank you for coming and sharing all of your stories with us. I guess my question is kind of in the process of being formulated, but as a freshman parent, I look at the Honors College at UVM and I'm looking at you and I'm saying, this is such an idyllic place to be in. It has so much to offer. The students have the aptitude to achieve whatever they want to and maybe discover what they really would be gifted in doing. Socially, and the atmosphere and the ambiance has everything to offer in terms of building friendships and living in a beautiful part of the world. So my question to you as a freshman parent is, as your child, if you can remember back to freshman year, as you get here after the first month or two, and you are trying to find that balance of pursuing your academics and also building friendships, do you have any advice for parents as to, we're also kind of letting go, how much do you leave it up to the administration, and how much do you remember advice that your parents gave you that you really embraced, or advice that you really thought, gee, I wish my mom wouldn't nag me about how you were doing on your last midterm test, and the amount of studying you were doing, and have you discovered the library, things like that. So
I know I talked the last time, but I feel very strongly that one of the most important things about coming to UVM or going to college in general is to sort of allow the student to explore these things themselves. And yes, the faculty and the administrators are here as tools that will help to facilitate what they want to do, but my advice is, if you're a student, or to tell your student if you're a parent, if you see something that looks interesting in your first year, go and try it out. Like, just go and do it. You do have to have a balance between classes and other things, but I think that it's important to take that extra time and maybe to work a little bit harder in the extra time you have available to go and find the things that you want to do, whether that's a club or a different set of classes, or maybe take an extra course because you might be interested in doing a minor. But you're here for probably 4 years for most of you. You should take this first year to explore what you want to do and find out if you actually do like it. And if you don't like it, or if you don't like your major, or you don't like whatever you're doing, it's always very easy to change that. But you should definitely take the time to go and explore and do these things on your own and of your own volition. Because if it's something that you as a student want to do and you're willing to go and take the initiative to start it, then the people who are in that organization or class or club or whatever group, they're going to see that, and then you're going to really excel very well at that, I think. Did that, was that on the right track?
Well, I just want to say first that I'm very honored to be a part of this panel, but I want to let you know that it's not as if it was hard to select this panel. I think they could have picked anyone from my graduating class of the Honors College, and they would have been able to tell the kinds of things that you just heard. When I was asked to be part of it, I immediately was like, yeah, I'd love to. Why are they asking me and not this person or this person, this person? Because I have a lot of friends who are doing really cool things, and they, like my fiance is doing really cool things, and she could just as easily be up here talking about what she does. But I think the greatest thing about the Honors College is the support system that it offers you, because it's such a nice, small, supportive community in the larger community of UVM. So I got to talk about all of the things that I've succeeded at, which is a really nice story to tell, but I didn't tell you all the things that I tried to do and was not good at. And the reason that I felt comfortable doing that was because I had the Honors College and the academic support from professors that I had worked with through the Honors College. So I knew that I had this kind of safety net, so I was never discouraged from trying at something and not being good at it. And I think that was a big part, is that I came to college and I was really comfortable putting myself out there, figuring out what I wanted to do, because I knew that I had a supportive community that would help me and I had professors I talked to, and I also had people in res life that I would talk to when things didn't go well, and it was a really great supportive community for that.
And lastly, if I could just say, when I first came here, I was undecided, and I did a little bit of floundering, as you know, some may. But what really helped me through was the fact that I talked to people. I was on academic probation. I almost got kicked out of the Honors College, and yes, though I may have tried very hard to get kicked out of the Honors College, they didn't give up on me, for which I'm grateful. If you ask Dean Schnell, she was still giving lectures on the pursuit of knowledge when I was a freshman. And sometimes she would bring in muffins, and we would all call her Mama Schnell because she would take care of us and talk to us individually, and she would get to know us, take the time. And I spent many afternoons in her office just having existential crises about one thing or another, and musing about my place in the universe. But she kept me pretty grounded, and I brought my grades up, found my place, and have gone on to succeed because of that. So, yeah, they've really helped. They really help you here.
And just to follow up with that, especially if your student is in the humanities, expect that those existential crises will definitely come because the literature and the discussions in class really beg you to ask yourself, why, what am I doing here, what's going on? And it is so incredibly helpful not to go that academic or also that course of self-discovery alone. You really need to make sure that you make it a priority as a student to have connections and mentors and friends. Friendship is huge, but so is the connections you have with faculty members to bring you back to reality when you go rogue. And I definitely did. So I was very grateful for certain connections that I had when I got a little ahead of myself.
So I know you asked kind of about like what the parents can do with their students, and I'm from Texas originally, so when I came here, my parents were really, really far away. I didn't really have access to them. I saw them at Christmas, really. That was kind of it. And my parents, I think, are a little unique in that they're a little hands-off. I feel like most parents, but I think really what they did for me was they told me that I could do it. And they were there when I needed to talk to someone. Because I feel like sometimes, in college you run into a moment where you just really need to talk it out with someone. Like you can figure out the answer yourself, definitely. But like having someone to kind of like bounce ideas off of that like you're really comfortable with is really nice. And also having someone just being like, you can go do this thing. It doesn't even matter what this thing is because, all of you in the Honors College are, really capable students. You can go do that thing. But it's always nice to have that extra little, like, voice on your shoulder telling you that you should go do it. You can accomplish this. So, thanks.
Thank you. Other questions? I'll go here, then I'll go there.
Hi, I'd just like to echo what other folks are saying. Thank you for doing this. And to those of you that traveled the distance, thank you for traveling back. And that sort of leads to my question. Other than the one person working at Global Foundries and the grad student, notice that all of the rest of you are now out of state. And I'm just wondering, from a student standpoint, what did you feel like the opportunities were, in the Burlington area or even, within Vermont? And was there anything after you got out where you were conflicted about staying or going, wishing there were more opportunities in the state?
So my senior year, when I was looking for jobs, before I was offered the position at HopeWorks, which is in Burlington, my fiance and I applied to teaching jobs in like every single state through this program that works with private schools to get them to teach high schoolers. And then internationally, and then all of a sudden this opportunity to stay in Burlington and work where I had been interning fell into my lap when they offered me the full-time job. And my fiance was offered a full-time job working at UVM, and I have friends who were offered jobs at UVM, one who's working at Ben & Jerry's in like coordinating their factory. And so there are, I think, for any graduate who wants to stay in the area, the benefit of UVM is that they have a really amazing relationship with the surrounding area, which is not true of all schools. So if you want to stay in the area, I think you absolutely can. I think actually a lot of people are very surprised to find that they decide that they want to stay here, and even though they came here and thought they would just be here for 4 years. I know that I thought I was going to be here for 4 years and then go and teach somewhere else, but when I got the opportunity to stay in Burlington and teach and do the direct service through HopeWorks, that I couldn't say no to staying here. And that I think because of all the one-on-one kind of support that we've been talking about with the Honors College, that is very possible to get the internship or get the job, like to get real and talk about the thesis, which I'm sure many of your children are talking about. The benefit of doing that thesis was that when I needed a job, I had 3 people that I had worked with very extensively who could talk about why I would be good in certain jobs. And that's something that I had from the Honors College that made it very easy to stay here because they were tapped into systems in our area.
I just wanted to say, I actually know a lot of people who they graduated from UVM. They were originally from out of state. They came to UVM as out-of-state students. They graduated here. They moved away to go to a job, and then they've actually moved back to Burlington. So I have a number of friends who've actually, they've gone elsewhere, and they were basically like, you know what, UVM has, or Burlington area and Vermont have a lot of things going on that I probably didn't give them credit for. And so they are now living here, and they're happy. I know I'm personally living in New York, but I'm hoping someday to move back as well. I think that UVM and Burlington and the surrounding area really has pretty much every industry that I can think of in my group of friends represented in it. It's a really good sort of microcosm of basically anything that you want to do here at UVM as a major. I'm sure some people would probably think that there are better opportunities elsewhere just because, you know, it's not a huge city. But if you want to move back to Burlington, I know everybody I know who's wanted to do that has absolutely made it work. So.
I guess I'll actually kind of talk about the opposite opinion. I actually, as an engineer, I find it's pretty difficult to find like different jobs, like technical jobs in Burlington. There are like pretty big companies and like several like pretty small companies. There's like Global Foundries, Dynapower. There are some of these like really big companies, but I couldn't find a lot of diversity. I'm actually graduating in May, so I'm starting to look for jobs. So it's pretty difficult to actually find like a technical job. So I guess that's one thing if you're in like a technical industry. I'm sure there's like computer science. There's definitely tons of web development opportunities in Burlington. But personally as an engineer, I found it pretty difficult to want to stay in Burlington. But I do love it here. It's a really nice place to be. But from a technical standpoint, it's very difficult to kind of find jobs. So.
Questions on this side? I saw at least one hand up over here. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm a freshman parent and have gone through the being proud of having my son invited to the Honors College and his excitement about the great dorms that he gets to live in because of the Honors College. But and a couple of you have alluded to this, but I'd be really interested in hearing from everybody, with the benefit of hindsight, what your affiliation with the Honors College, how it affected your undergraduate education and your life here, maybe both in a pro and con way. If there's a con way, kind of just with an eye to, you've probably got much better perspective on it, and it would be interesting to be able to share with our kids what they should be doing to take advantage of the sorts of things that in retrospect you really appreciated.
I think that question very much echoes with me, is that, so I'm pretty sure the Honors College still has the Office of Research that helps connects you to research mentors. And it was through that research mentor that I found my thesis advisor and, like kind of a lifelong mentor. And that's a really helpful resource because when you first start college, you don't really know how to find these people, and you don't really know, you don't even know you're supposed to do that. But so I think definitely I would use that Office of Research, I forget what it's called, and they have they used to have this 20-page book of all of these people's names that would be willing to take in students, and that's so much more easier than looking online, and then you just get super lost. And then you would just contact all of these people, and they're all willing to take in students as far as science research goes. So that was a really good resource that I would say as far as changed my life. It probably did change my life. And what else? And I don't think there's any cons, because you had asked about any cons to being, because it's what are the negative parts about having more resources? Probably nothing. So I can't think of any cons for that, but yeah.
So I can't talk about my freshman year Honors College experience because I was actually a sophomore year acceptance. So I applied for my sophomore year. But what I think the Honors College really gave me was, as Tram said, a really excellent support system, especially in the case of your thesis and applying to fellowships. I worked with Britt Chase really closely, applying for different fellowships, and I feel like while I didn't actually end up getting a fellowship, I learned a lot about myself in the process, and I feel like that coaching really helped me in the long run, kind of thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. The same thing with my thesis, they're really there to help you through your thesis, because I feel like when you get to that point in your college career, that's a totally new thing. How do you, even as an English major, I was like, how do I write this 60-page thing, right? And they basically talked you through it. They gave you additional resources. It was really wonderful.
So when I first came to the Honors College, I was not convinced that I needed to write a thesis. I was not convinced that I was academically capable of doing such things. I came, and the dorms are beautiful, as you saw. Everything's bigger, nicer, and cleaner than any of the other buildings. So I was like, oh, that's where I want to be. I want to be up on the hill, right? But what I found that really benefited my time here was that everybody there kind of wants to be there, So it provides more of a space for some relationships to develop with people that care, And so that meant a lot to me, being in the Honors College. I was there both years, and met some of my best friends in the world there. I guess if you're looking for cons, I suppose if you have a very full class schedule, it could be trying because there are additional classes you have to take in the first couple of years of Honors College. But those classes just help you develop as a student more, and I appreciated them. So that's my experience.
I think if you're a freshman parent, then the big pro that you're noticing is the dorms, and the big con that all your children are or will soon be talking about is the thesis. And the issue with looking at it that way is that probably your children will want to move off campus their junior or senior year, and then suddenly this pro that brought them to the Honors College doesn't apply anymore, but it's like now they have to pay for the fact that they were in this really great dorm by doing this thesis. And so consequently, you have a lot of juniors and seniors who say, do I really want to do this thesis? And in hindsight, I've realized that I looked at the thesis completely wrong. and that it was actually the most valuable part of being in the UVM Honors College, because I think it's just scary. You have to have a certain GPA, it has to be a certain number of pages, it has to be about a topic that you pick your junior year and then write about your senior year, and that scared me. But what I should have thought, what I wish I had thought of it as being was, okay, imagine a class where you pick your favorite professor, and you get all of their attention, and there's no one else in that class. And then you get to pick the topic that you want this class to be about, right? And then you get to pick all of the readings that you want to do, and you lay out your schedule in a way that works well for you. That sounds like a really awesome class that I'd be really excited about for 3 years. But that's not how I framed it. So really, like, if they start talking about a thesis, or if you're a student and you're worried about it, just try to change how you think about it. It's a really amazing opportunity while you're at school. And then it was definitely the best investment that I made at school in terms of payoff after I graduated. Like, people still talk about the thesis that I did and the independent work that takes to be able to do something like that. Like, people are very impressed that you're motivated to do something like that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to speak from the perspective of somebody who's now working towards a PhD, and probably for the rest of my life, I'm going to be writing papers and trying to get them published. And this is coming from a scientist's perspective too, so I don't know how applicable it'll be to people in humanities and social sciences, but I was actually very excited for the thesis in a way that was sort of different from my peers, because I knew that as a scientist, I'm going to be trying to get papers published the whole time I'm doing what I'm doing. And the Honors College really facilitates hooking up with an advisor who will even encourage you to publish papers aside from your thesis. So one of the things that I did, and I found very valuable, and some of my other friends did, was we actually went to our advisors and said, we want to publish papers as students because we think that'll help us in our career. And so that's something that we did, and that sort of just naturally evolved into the thesis, because you can pull from all of the undergraduate research you've done and just sort of turn it into this body of what you've learned in your field, and that just naturally evolves into what you do as the next thing in your career. I went into my PhD program having done the thesis here, and I already had a basis for which to formulate my graduate thesis. So it's been very, very beneficial in that sense.
So actually, to answer your question about how the Honors College has helped develop like a professional experience, I think my sophomore year, the Honors College hosted something really nice. It was called the Professional Development Forum. I believe it was hosted by Britt Chase as well. So it kind of talks about, it's like I believe it's just a session for our Honors College students where you can really talk about how to go from backpack to briefcase, I guess. So how to, be prepared for the real world. And I think that actually really helped me in applying for like internships as well as jobs. And that was something that was through the Honors College, and that really helped me a lot. So.
I just had a quick question regarding about your thesis you're talking about that you do your senior year. Do you do like an internship your junior year, and is it during school or is it the summer? And is it based, of course, like in your major?
So internships are not required by the Honors College unless the parameters have changed. I don't think they have. No, good. Okay, so internships are totally voluntary. That's just an opportunity for students to get into the professional world, experiment with different working positions. Junior year in the Honors College when I was there, was involved with a thesis prep course, at least in the business school that's the case. And so junior year you take a course which helps you mock up various thesis topics, practice research skills, learn how to do a literature review, things of that nature. So that by the end of junior year, I knew exactly what I was writing my thesis on. I knew how to go about it, and I already had most of the literature review done. So that's junior year.
That's a very idyllic junior year. So bravo to you. My experience was a tad different. I will tell you that the thesis seemed like the scariest possible thing, and it really was up until the very end, and I am not exaggerating when I say this. My hindsight is, all these classes that you do in preparation for your thesis, this buzzword thesis. Really try not to think about it as this 60-page paper. Tell your students to think about it as an opportunity to work with awesome people, and then tell them to write it in, 8-page installments. Because for me, at least, thinking about this thesis, and I was scared of it from my freshman year through my senior year, and it ended up being a really awesome opportunity. And I learned, for me, it was so much more about the process than the product, and that I think is huge as well. But thinking about it as a freshman, this murky concept of a thesis, you can do as many lit reviews as till you could do lit reviews till you're blue in the face, and that doesn't prepare you for taking an idea, formulating an idea, and then taking it from start to finish over 60 pages. But that's really not what a thesis needs to be. It's a long, elongated set of installments and chapters that you get to write with somebody who's really wonderful and who will push you to write a really good paper that you can be proud of. So I guess through the Honors College, that thesis was an awesome opportunity, but it definitely will preoccupy your students and scare them. And I'm super impressed that for you, it was, laid out nicely, but for me, that was not the case at all. And in hindsight, I would have really taken the onus off of that experience and just tried to enjoy it a little more.
Hi, congratulations. You guys are an impressive bunch. My question is specifically for Hayley and Julia. You guys started off as English and Lit majors, and you wound up building healthcare systems and financial forecasting. So not your major, but I'm wondering what kind of structure you had that you learned here. Did you do a double major? Did you minor in those kinds of things? Because that's a pretty big jump, and I don't think you can go confidently into building systems like that. So how did you do that?
Okay, well, for me it was totally random. I could not have predicted my future if you paid me $1 million, and it still sort of baffles me that I ended up in finance and in software because I can't really balance my checkbook and I hate computers. But I guess I really loved my liberal arts education. That was for me. And you asked what, as parents, you can do for your students. Please remind them that their undergraduate experience is and should be totally self-indulgent. Doesn't necessarily need to be vocational, because what you're learning, especially if you're in the humanities, and of course it's different in sciences, but what you're doing is building a base of communicating, right? So from there, I had this base, I had connection skills, I had, which is huge, which is everything in business, or in, really whatever field you'll end up being in. And then, I took a job within a healthcare system, a very low-level position, and then through some luck, the healthcare system that I was working in decided to go through this implementation, and I was in the right place at the right time. But through my I guess my critical thinking abilities and my communication skills, which I think are a testament to UVM's Honors College, I was able to essentially network myself into a position where they provided on-the-job training. So I didn't learn any of my software, financial, whatever skills through UVM per se. I was just able to locate a good opportunity when I saw one. And then, a lot of training is provided on the job, and that's there for you to take advantage of as well after you graduate.
So I honestly never would have thought I would be doing data analytics when I came to UVM. That was not at all in my game plan. But I think what Julia said about communication and creating a communication skill set really helped me get to where I am today. So I was an English major, but I was also an economics major. So I did have, some element of, math, critical thought about business strategy in my background. But something that I was actually thinking about recently as I was at work was that I feel like I love telling a story with data and being able to look at my data and say, okay, what is this telling me? How can I tell, my boss, my boss's boss, my peers, what these numbers are telling me? And I think that my ability to translate data into words has been helped exponentially by my background in English and my background in journalism. I know I mentioned I worked at the Vermont Cynic, and as a journalist, you're constantly finding new stories. You're constantly learning about somebody else's life and somebody else's skills and somebody else's processes. So I think that all of those pieces together, your ability to communicate, your ability to translate information in a way that other people can understand you, and your critical thought skills really helps you anywhere. I also, enjoyed math a lot in high school and, had that experience, working in my economics major. But I feel like today I'm doing things that, I didn't necessarily do in college. I don't think I ever used a pivot table in Excel, in college. Yeah, no, pivot tables, they're great. So learn pivot tables. You may or may not be using them when you graduate. Good times. Yeah, and, I think that UVM and the Honors College and my majors gave me a solid foundation of base skills to bring forward into, whatever you choose to do, whatever I chose to do. So.
Thanks. In listening to you, it reminds me of the ancient alchemist who pursued the philosopher's stone and the transmutation of base metal into gold, and discovered that what was being transformed had nothing to do with the metal and everything to do with their consciousness. So I asked you, you've pointed out the difference between fear and love relative to the senior thesis. And there seems to be some discussion about trusting the heart and recognizing that if you pursue what you love, the perfection of life will coalesce around you in what you meet. You've talked about that. So my question is this. Parents oftentimes become goal specific because of their own experience in life. But college is a revisionist experience. You revise who you are when you leave their house, and you become something entirely new. And so have you learned, my question is this, have you learned to trust in the transformative process so that life isn't about life out there, it's about you in here?
So when I answered a question earlier, I alluded to that the Honors College was really great because it supported me when I failed at things. One of the things that I failed at was proposing my thesis junior year for the first time. It was rejected, and I had to write up a new thesis proposal that was accepted. And the reason that it was rejected was because I was writing a proposal for a thesis I didn't really want to write, and I'm sure that the committee could tell that I didn't want to write. I was writing a thesis that I thought, at the time, I was debating getting a PhD in philosophy, and so I was writing a thesis that I thought would look really great to the specific schools that I wanted to apply to for that, and I was not passionate about it at all, and I think the committee could tell. And so I ended up just really thinking about the courses that had interested me the most, and they were an English class about gender identity and literature, which was not something that I had come into college expecting to find interesting at all, but it was something that I really loved in the course. And the other class was a philosophy class that I took about identity. And once I wrote that thesis proposal, it was accepted without revisions, which was very nice. Meant I didn't have to edit it again. And things just flowed much better from that proposal. And then I realized that the more that I just said, I like doing this and it's going well for me, the more that people could tell that I had integrity around what I was doing and were more supportive, and the more that things just seemed to work out for me. I think part of the issue with college is that you're presented with a lot of shoulds. And that for the first 2.5 years, I listened a lot to what I should be doing from my peers, because you get people telling you that you should always be studying, but you also get people telling you that you should never study and that you'll be fine. So I was surrounded by this all the time. And it took probably until my junior year with this proposal to just say, I know this is really weird for me to do, but I want to talk about gender, and I want to do philosophy of gender. And once I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do now, then because I was passionate about it, things have worked out much better. But it took a while, and to bring it to parents, it took a lot of conversations with my dad, specifically, saying like, what should I be doing right now? I've been told that I should work with this professor, but I took one class with him and I really didn't like it at all, but apparently he's really well respected. And my dad just saying like, if you didn't like him, don't work with him for 1.5 years. And I was like, yeah, but Dad, you don't get it. He's so well respected. And he was like, yeah, you aren't gonna do good work if you don't like what you're doing. And it took a long time, and I'm sure he grew tired of the conversations, but he kept up with it, which I am eternally grateful for.
Do we have a student that wants to ask a question? Speaking of, I think one of the things about college and being in the Honors College too is that, alluded to what I said before, is that you have to kind of be proactive, or that's how it was in my experience, is that we all talk about all these resources and like all these support systems, but you have to seek them out. Like if you sit in your room and have all these issues and queries about what you don't want to do, what you don't know how to do, like people aren't going to help you if they don't know you need help. And so I think that's my advice for the students in here too, is to like be proactive about literally everything you want to do. But having said that, you don't have to ask a question if you don't want to.
And we know y'all have questions about like dining halls or laundry or something, you know. So
You can answer those too.
yeah, we don't have to talk about the thesis forever.
And just to make a note, a response to what Tram said, you probably noticed through what we've been saying and our answers to your questions that some of us will say one answer to a question, and then somebody will say, well, I have the exact opposite opinion, or I had the exact opposite experience. So I think that's why it's good to have a number of us up here, because everybody who does the Honors College, I know the Honors College has a set curriculum, and the first year everyone takes the same course, but everyone has a very different experience, and the way that they experience it and the way that they manage their education and their social experiences and everything else they do is going to vary like extremely from one person to the other. So every single one of us has different experiences with every step of the process, and yeah, it's that. I think that might be obvious from the answers we've given. So.
One back here, and then.
No, I had two questions actually. And the first, I think you've done a really good job of giving us a feel for, which was how does your UVM experience differ from those that aren't part of the Honors College? But if anyone wanted to expand on that a little bit more, love to hear it. But the second was, I mean, you've been so successful, two of you at Ivy League schools right now, and I'm wondering as you've left UVM and you tell people you went to UVM, do you always tell them, you know, when I was part of the Honors College, or is that usually part of the conversation? Do people look at you, think of you differently because you are an Honors College graduate versus from the regular UVM community? And other than the professors that have helped you and all the guidance you've gotten, you know, does that have, you know, the cachet of, wow, these are the elite of UVM?
Honors colleges are really trendy right now. It looks really good. I can say I've been asked on, you know, I've never been asked about my GPA on a job interview. I've never been asked, you know, really any questions about my academic work, which is, you know, probably in my case because I'm doing something so vastly different than what I did as an undergrad. But when people see that Honors College stamp at the top of your resume, they really respond to it. And then, of course, they also want to talk about the mountains. So a lot of job interviews for me have, you know, started with the discussion of just how dope Vermont is, you know, which I can talk about all day long.
Like Joe said, I think we're all going to disagree on things. I don't think that, to be honest, I don't think the Honors College did much for my, as far as not like the label, the Honors College, because I think being in science and in medicine, it's based on what you do a lot of the things. And so the Honors College helps me set up, like the thesis was super important, or my advisors, or the classes I took. But, you know, like I think what Julia said too, they're trendy, but you actually have to do something. You can't just be in the Honors College and like, you know, be like, write that you were in the Honors College. I don't think that's going to speak to much, but if you use the resources that the Honors College provides you and write a really good thesis, work with really great people that help connect you, then that's going to take you a lot farther. But I don't think that the name actually does anything for me personally.
So when I just started at Penn like 5 weeks ago, and part of orientation at Penn, because it's like known to be a prestigious Ivy League school, was that they did a whole thing about how we were all going to feel like outsiders and like we didn't belong there. And in my class at law school, there are 250 of us, and there aren't a lot of us that went to the same schools. I'm the only person from UVM there. There's a person from UVM, the Honors College, who's a year ahead of me, who is actually younger than me, but he's ahead of me in law school, which is a strange dynamic for me, because I remember seeing him and moving his stuff in, but now he's the one that's telling me how law school is going to be. But so no matter where you go, whether it be the Honors College at a public university or a really prestigious school in and of itself, you need to work hard there. I think the benefit of the Honors College is that they made me work hard, whereas there are people at other schools who just kind of get in and expect that just having Honors College or just having some specific name will be enough. And the Honors College, because of the support and the internship that I did and the thesis and all that, like, I wanted to work, and they just funneled all of my energy into what I should be doing. And I never feel like an outsider. And I don't know about Columbia and Brown and if that's the same way, but like I went in there expecting that I would feel out of place, and I do not at all. And when it does come up that I went to the Honors College, I don't like wear a brand or anything, or I don't say, well, I went to UVM, but I went to the Honors College or anything like that. But it does come up, and usually when it comes up, people are really envious. Like, I met a young woman at the admitted student weekend for NYU Law, and she had gone to Columbia, and she asked what my undergrad experience was like, and I told her what mine was like, and she told me what hers was like, and it sounded horrible and ultra competitive and nothing that I would ever want. And she said, yeah, Columbia didn't have anything like the Honors College. That sounds really nice, right? So the benefit of being in the Honors College at UVM is that people know the name UVM, all right, and they know that it's a good school. And so you are saying, I went to this really great school that you know, and also I was part of a specific community within that shows that I worked harder or whatever the case might have been, right? Whereas there are a lot of schools that don't have that initial reputation where you have to say, this is a school that I went to and you've never heard of it because it's super small. Or there are other schools where maybe you don't work as hard because it's not that kind of community.
I saw a hand up over here. Yes, this gentleman. Then I'm coming back over here.
I'm going to take you up on your offer to ask about, well, not the dining hall, but a non-academic type question regarding relationships. How would you characterize your relationships with other kids in the Honors College versus the general population at UVM? And is it sort of one big community, or are there sort of parallel worlds? I don't know how best to phrase that, but how did relationships develop within and outside of the Honors College?
So in my experience, it seemed like most of the relationships you develop right when you move in are sort of based on the community you live in. At least for me, the people who live close to me on my hall, in the same dorm hall in University Heights North, where the Honors College is, they were the people who I met first and who I developed a lot of my friendships with. However, after a while, after that first year, in the second year, maybe some people want to move into other communities, like in Living Learning, where they're themed around something different, or people would move off campus, or they would meet people in some of their classes that then they would a little bit more slowly develop friendships with. It sort of got for me to the point where at first I was mostly friends with people in the Honors College, and then it just sort of spread out from there. So by the time I graduated, there was pretty much an even distribution of my friends from the different schools and programs on campus, and I think that's sort of a natural course of things. Now, I do still have some friends from the Honors College who I consider to be very close friends because I moved in with them, I went through the whole experience with them, I even lived with some of them off campus once I moved off campus, and I still am in touch with them to this day. So I think it does a really good thing in that it introduces you to some of your great friends. And with those friends, you have the opportunity to sort of suffer through the hardships of writing a thesis and doing the curriculum and adding the extra Honors College stuff onto your schedule and maybe studying for the exams for certain elective courses within the Honors College. But you will over time develop people who you don't have that same connection with, but you still have just as great of a friendship, just with a little bit different dynamic. I don't think it's restrictive in any sense. Everybody who's been talking about the Honors College here has been talking about the opportunities it opens up. And so I think it presents you new opportunities to make friends with different people, but it doesn't restrict you in any way, in my experience.
Yeah, sure.
Parallel world.
I guess from an academic standpoint, it's really nice to be with the other Honors College students because you know that they're going to be like really good students when you're studying for exams and doing homeworks together. I spent my first 2 years in the Honors College building. I actually wasn't in the Honors College in my freshman year, but I lived on the 4th floor for whatever reason. And my junior year, I wanted to try a different dorm with my old roommate from the Honors College. So I definitely kind of experienced both worlds, kind of like the Honors College building and then like a separate building, non-Honors College. And I think the community in the Honors College is much tighter because a lot of students have the similar classes. So you would spend a lot of time seeing the same people. You would be living on the same floor with them, and then you'd go to class with them. So I guess having experienced the Honors College dorm style, and then having experienced just a non-Honors College dorm style, I think it was really beneficial to be living with people who you saw pretty much every day, and it really forms a nice community, and that's about it.
Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions. So we've got one here for certain. Oh, and we got 3 over here. Uh-oh.
Okay, so this is kind of different. Do you feel like you're all happy in what you're doing now? Because for me, I don't care how well you do in school or anything or what kind of job you get. To me, the important thing in life is to be happy with what you're doing. So are you happy in what you're doing, and do you feel that UVM helped you in finding what would make you happy?
Yeah, that's really heavy. So I'm in grad school here. I should have said that when I introduced myself. I'm in the Masters of Accountancy program. But one of the coolest things I've gotten to do in my life is work on this nonprofit project, Books for Equality, and that came through through serendipity, through the relationships that I made here. If I hadn't come to a big school like UVM, I wouldn't have had the opportunities in front of me to try different things. I'm a dabbler, like I said. I was undecided. I tried different sports, etc. And through that, I met a bunch of interesting people, right? But this nonprofit kind of came out of one of my friends' heads, and I saw it, and I said, "Wow, that's cool. Let me help you. Let's build this thing together." And it's taking off. You get to see ideas come to life here, and yeah, it makes me really happy.
So when I got to UVM, I sort of knew what I wanted to do. I knew the field I wanted to go into. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that field, as a career later. I sort of had this vague idea of going into research. But the mentor that I met here at UVM did an awesome job of saying, okay, I've seen the way you work. I think that you would be really, really good doing this. And I know that it seems like something that you would be really excited doing. And I think you should, do this with your life. And that sort of helped inform me. And so, yeah, because of this person, well, largely because of this advisor that I met, I'm very happy with what I'm doing right now. And I think that a lot of the faculty affiliated with the Honors College here have the sort of state of mind to help students do the same thing. Not everybody is happy with what they do right outside of college. A lot of people, they go into something they consider a dead-end job. Maybe it's in their field, maybe it's not in their field, and they'll reevaluate that a couple times, and they'll be depressed, and that's I think that's a normal course of things. But I think that of the people I've talked to here at UVM, a lot of the people in the Honors College have met people while they were here because of Honors College opportunities. And those people that they met have helped them identify, this is what I want to do when I graduate. I think I would be happy in this field. Why don't I ignore what I wanted to do when I came in order to do something a bit better? It sounds like some other people on this panel have probably done similar things. Because of relationships they've formed here, they've identified a new direction they want to do. Like Tom's thesis, for example. He wouldn't, I don't want to speak for you, but it doesn't sound like that's something you would have done if you didn't come here and meet the people you did and attend the classes you did. And it sounds like it's something that you really enjoyed and that it's made a huge difference in your life. And so, yeah, personally, I'm very happy with it, and I attribute a lot of it to what I've experienced here.
So I should preface this by saying that the philosophy department is very small, and so I don't know if this is going to be applicable to all the different majors that are out there. But my senior year, I was debating if I wanted to do the PhD in philosophy or go to law school and get a JD. And I talked to my academic advisor and my thesis advisor, and I was doing the internship at HopeWorks, so I was doing direct service advocacy, and then I moved in that full time. But I still wanted to see if I would prefer researching and doing that. And so the department, on top of my thesis, I was also a tutor and I was a TA for 2 classes. And so at the end of my senior year, I felt like I had a pretty good idea of what direct service advocacy looked like and what the work was like. And I also had researched a thesis and tutored students and graded exams and all that. And so through my senior year, I kind of had an idea of what these different career paths might look like, and I was able to say, yeah, I'm gonna go do the JD and go to law school because I really found that more rewarding. And if I had not been able to juggle all of those things with the support of my professors and advisors, I would have graduated and said, what does being a professor look like? I don't really know, and I probably would still be questioning what I wanted to do.
One more. Okay. From a student.
So as a student who always has a million things they have to do, how did you balance your sanity with your schoolwork and grades?
What's sanity? to actually answer that question seriously, you're probably going to have some nights where you don't get a whole lot of sleep. That's sort of what I did. I briefly alluded to the fact that I took a 5th year, and I did that voluntarily, and I knew that's because I wanted to explore a bunch of different things. And that is always an option that's available to students. You know, if it's something that you can make work financially, and if it's something that you think is acceptable with your goals in life, you can always take the extra time to do more things that you want. But I think part of being in college is experiencing the time crunch and learning that you will lose sleep sometimes. Sometimes you will have an exam that you need to study crazy hard for. And by the time you get out of college, you may or may not be an old pro at that. You know, I'm still taking courses at Columbia, and they're tough courses, but I've been through it so many times that, you know, an exam, a tough exam, it's become sort of par for the course. And I think that it's important not to try and totally avoid the time crunch and the being busy, but to sort of learn how to handle it and to how to accept it. And I think the best way to do that is just through experience. And you are, like I said, you are going to experience that.
I think it's also incredibly helpful to, and the Honors College is helpful for this as well, but to have friends who are in the same boat as you, who are invested in their studies, who want to be studying. It's a whole lot more fun to be pulling all-nighters in the library with other people than by yourself. So just having connections with people who are invested in what they're doing as well makes the whole experience a lot easier, because yeah, I mean, the deadlines are there when you're in school, and they're there, you know, after school also. So there's no difference there really. But having people to support you through them is necessary.
I guess the 2 people, but you also don't have to spend all-nighters. I think I had like 1 all-nighter, and it wasn't really my fault. But so you know, so it's also, you really do have to like learn to prioritize things and to manage your time well. And I guess some people do learn, like, do it differently, but I think one really good advice that one of the professors told me, and as someone who, you know, wants to go into grad school or somewhere more competitive where grades really matter, is that you have to make sure that your grades are kind of there forever. So like you can, so like that's always something first. So I guess I'll just speak to med school, but like you can always go back and volunteer or do more research or like do these extraneous things that help you get into med school, but like your grades are also really important because you can't go back and redo those grades. And so you have to think about, you know, how to prioritize your life. And I think that that's a skill set that is really helpful for life altogether, so.
Yeah, I'm with Tram on one point, and that's that you don't need to pull all-nighters. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm too busy. I can't find the time," and you know that's because you can't really find time. You have to make time. I balanced my life out with a lot of sports and a little bit of music. I always just made time to, whether it was go rowing boats or playing basketball with just random people. That really helped keep me, you know, grounded through all of that. But I also wasn't really that concerned about grades. Like most of the cool stuff in my life came through people. I was involved with case competitions through the business school. You know, involved in research, involved in as many interesting things as I could be. That allowed me to build my network, build my skill set, and it's gotten me to where I am right now. So that's my.
One more brief word. Learn how to use the calendar application on your computer.
And on your phone.
A lot of us have talked about how supportive UVM is, and the Honors College specifically. Part of it being so supportive is that this community is like relatively almost completely stigma-free, right? And so as an Honors College student, chances are that you have done well in a lot of things and that you want to do well in all of the things. And that might not happen. I was a philosophy major, English minor. I had to take astronomy and a lab and bio and I cannot do those things well, and I was used to doing things well. And I went to the Learning Co-op, which is in L&L, and that's where I ended up being a philosophy tutor. And they have tutors for all of the intro courses, which ended up frequently being my most difficult classes. Like a senior seminar in something I was really interested in, I would work hard and love it. But an intro course in a topic that I had absolutely no interest in and my brain did not like working that way, that's when I really struggled, and that's when there's the most support at L&L. So don't be afraid to utilize all the really great services that are here. I did it again because senior year, when I was debating what I wanted to do, I took the GRE and suddenly had to do math for the first time since high school, because I took logic and I did AP in high school. So I hadn't done math in like 4 years. And suddenly I had to take the GRE and do math. And I went to the Learning Co-op again and worked with a math tutor to get my GRE score up. So don't be ashamed, afraid, or whatever to utilize those services. It'll pay off, and chances are that you will be the person supplying those services in something before you graduate.
So your question was about sanity. So I think it's like pretty important to keep your eye on like the overall keep your eyes on the prize. Like kind of keep things into perspective. Like you don't really want to pull all-nighters like just to get like an A on the exam or something. I think it's one of the biggest regrets I have like as an engineering major is I think I worked too hard. Like I put a lot of time into things that I really didn't need to like really do. That's not to say blow off all your exams and just, don't do any homework, but it's important to balance your life, because sometimes like looking back, like studying that hard and like trying to do all these things like to perfection wasn't really conducive to my time. I guess it was very I guess I put a lot of stress on me that I didn't really need. So I guess kind of keep in mind that school isn't everything. Like grades, your GPA might not matter. I talked to an alumni panel for engineering a couple days ago actually, and they said one of their regrets as well was they worried too much about GPA, and they worried about what they would get on the exam, and they really took a lot more stress than they really needed. So my advice is just to keep. I think sanity is more important than like maybe your GPA. So.
And I think I would say, don't procrastinate so that you can procrastinate. Because if you don't procrastinate and you get your things done, then you can strategically procrastinate later. Like you can go to brunch with your friends, or you can take an entire day to like go apple picking and like not work on whatever paper or, problem set it is that you've been assigned, if you've done it earlier in the week. Like if you had, a few hours, instead of filling those hours with television, do that paper, and then later you can take an entire day to do whatever you want. And, I think I can totally relate to Tram in that, like, I think I had maybe 2 all-nighters because I didn't procrastinate, and I tried to get it done in advance, so that really helped me.
So we have to stop there, but there will be opportunities to continue some of our discussions. There's still coffee available, there's still snacks available, and our panelists are going to be hanging around. And I want to really thank our panelists. Many have traveled, and it's inspiring to hear what you're saying about both where you've gone and what you're doing, but also about your experience. And reminds me as an administrator of what great people we get to work with, and reminds me of the things that we can do. And I feel very lucky to be part of this experience too. And some of you know that I'm new in the Honors College, but I feel really lucky, and all of you really affirm that and make me feel lucky as well. So congratulations to all of you on your successes, and we hope they continue. And thanks to all of you for joining us and for asking questions. And please feel free to help yourselves and continue the conversations. We've got a little time. Don't forget the sunshine.